It's good to see you guys. Well, hello and welcome. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, pretty cool. Well, I can't stay because I have to go out to the garden and do a bunch of other stuff, but this is one of my favorite parts of the day when we have music series, is inviting you guys all here so you get a little taste of it. And today, in the latest edition of the White House Music Series, we are celebrating the great American art of country music. And this is our second time doing country music, and it's one of our favorite art forms. And I want to start by just thanking a few people before I turn it over. We have a trio of amazing stars, men who are gorgeous and talented and awesome and giving. Yes. Lyle Lovett, Darius Rucker, and of course Kris Kristofferson, who are here with us, and Bob Santelli, who has been just a huge support for these events that we have. He's from the Grammy Museum, and he helps to put all this stuff together and oftentimes works to get young people here for these series. So I want to thank them for being here. So in a little bit, you're going to have an opportunity to hear from them. They're going to tell you some stories, answer some questions, and sing. They're prepared. They're all ready. But first, I want you guys to get a better sense of why we put on these workshops, because I want you to know why these are important to us and why we're so excited to have students from Anacostia, right? We got some Anacostia students. We got teachers firing it up. Woodrow Wilson High School is here. Fire it up. And Newport Middle School. Oh, yes. So you're excited. You're excited. Well, we are excited to have you all here. We've invited you here because I want to make sure that the White House lives up to the name, the People's House. That's what everybody calls it, what we call it, and I want to be sure that it's not just a place for senators and diplomats and CEOs who have a chance to come here, but it's a place for all Americans, especially young people. And so I want you to all have a chance to come into the state dining room and sit in these chairs, just like every head of state comes into this room when we have a state dinner. This is where they sit. This is where they eat. I want you guys to walk around these halls and look at the artwork and to imagine the history that has been made here. I want you to see up close just how talented folks like Darius, Lyle, and Kris are. And to hear their music, but more importantly, to understand their stories. But here's the important part. I don't want you to come here and simply just sit back in awe. And you guys seem like not a shy bunch, so that's good. That's a good start. So don't be shy. I want you all to realize that as you sit here, that you belong here. That's one of the reasons we do this. You have to see yourself here in these seats, sitting up here on this stage one day, because Kris, Darius, and Lyle might be country music stars today, but they were once just young people like you with their own dreams. Kris grew up in Texas, the son of a military officer. Lyle grew up outside of Houston and joined a band when he was in the 9th grade. And because he liked playing the guitar so much, he'd ride around and you'd take lessons an hour away from where you live. Is that true? Do I have my facts right?
That's exactly right.
So you drive for an hour for lessons. And Darius once lived in a house with his mom, 2 aunts, his grandmother, and 14 kids. Oh.
I love this.
That's some character building right there. He always wanted to be a singer, so he'd walk around singing songs using a broomstick as a guitar. So that was your first instrument, the broomstick. But as each of them got older, they kept chasing their passion for music, but none of them took a straight road to the top. It wasn't automatic. It took a little bit. For a while, Lyle tried to be a journalist. That's something I didn't know. Really?
I took journalism in school,
Uh-huh.
but nobody ever hired me.
No, that's probably okay. But as he put it, making up songs he thought wasn't a real job. And I know a lot of people think that the things they really like to do, if you really like it, then obviously you can't get paid for it. But they always came back to music, each of them, no matter how they diverted their careers. They started playing out in small clubs, then the clubs got bigger, and they kept working and working. And now, years later, they're able to do what they love every single day. And that is really my biggest hope for all of you, is that as you sit here and you listen to these fine gentlemen, that you figure out how you can turn something that you love into one of those real jobs, right? I mean, think about the things that really drive you and give you passion. And it might not be music. It might be business, it might be technology, it might be teaching or medicine, or anything else. For me, it was working with young people that gave me passion. But no matter what sparks your imagination, I want you to take that energy and then follow it. Follow it with every little piece of energy that you have. Because whatever you do, it does take work. And that's the one thing you have to get in your mind, that even when you love something, if you're going to be good at it and get good enough at it, you have to invest in it. And I also want you all to imagine yourselves coming back to the White House maybe years from now, sitting up on this stage and hearing from some future First Lady or future President. And I want you to be thinking about telling your story to the next generation of young people. And you have to be able to see yourselves in these places to begin to imagine and to dream and to work towards those dreams. You can tell your story. You'll be telling them how you grew up in Washington or maybe in Rockville, how you worked hard, how you kept chasing your dreams, how you got invited to the White House one day and sat and listened to some of the finest artists in the country, and that made you go back and work a little harder and focus a little more. I want you, every single one of you, to believe that something like that is possible for you. Because if I'm standing here as the First Lady of the United States, having grown up on the south side of Chicago, with a father who was a stationary fireman and a mother who stayed at home, parents who didn't go to college, if I'm here, then you can be here, right? You can be here. But it's only if you believe in that. You got to start out, first of all, believing in that for yourselves, and it only happens if you're willing to work for it. So today, I want you to use this as an opportunity. So don't feel shy or bashful. Use these gentlemen as resources. Poke them, prod them, ask questions, get all the information that you can. Ignore the media, to pretend like you're here all by yourselves, and make the most of this opportunity. Will you promise me that? You, I don't worry about. You, yeah, I think you're gonna be plenty ready to talk. So you all enjoy yourselves, right? Keep working hard, keep staying positive, listen to your teachers, listen to your parents, eat your vegetables. I have to say it. And with that, I will turn it over to you guys. Thank you all. Have fun.
Well, welcome. My name is Bob Santelli, and I'm the Executive Director of the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles. And this is, I think, the third or fourth time that the Grammy Museum has been in this very room to talk about American music to not just you, but also to many students out there across America who are listening to this online. I have three very, very important guests, which I'll get to in a minute. But before we start our musical program, what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of an overview as to why and how country music is such an important part of American music culture. Now, in order to do that, what I want to do is I'm going to take you back about 100 years. Okay, let's go back to the early part of the 20th century. Because at that part, 1910, 1912, somewhere around there, an amazing thing is happening in America. We are about ready as a nation to experience an explosion of music. An explosion of music. So much so that the 20th century, no other country can match the amount of music that we created during that 100-year period. Not one, not two, but almost a dozen different music forms evolved and came of age in the 20th century in America. One of them, of course, is country music. Can any of you help me identify the others? Rock, so rock and roll, that's one, yeah. The blues, absolutely. Punk, yeah, kind of rock and roll. Hip hop for sure. R&B. Swing, a part of jazz. Jazz, yep. Think sacred. What about sacred? Gospel, sure, gospel. What else? Folk. Rock and roll. Okay, you get the picture. Can you imagine just one nation, in a less than 100-year period, we gave birth to so many of those different music forms, and all of them great, so that today you can go to the Philippines and you can hear country music. You can go to China and hear blues. You can go to Chile and hear jazz. You can go to Belgium and hear hip-hop. It's our great American cultural export. So with so many different kinds of music, you have to ask yourself, how did it happen? Why? It happens because we are a nation of immigrants. And every immigrant who came to this country brought something with them other than their material possessions. They brought their music. So all of a sudden, this great country, this America of immigrants, has not only people coming in from all over the world to settle here and become American citizens and contribute to our country, but they're bringing their music. And we put all of their musical influences in a melting pot, in a big pot, and we stir it up, and out comes these great music forms. One of the most important ones, one of the earliest ones, is country music. Now, before country music, there was no such thing as a music culture, or a music culture that actually was, what they say, commodified, or in other words, they made money on. Most of the country music that we heard in the 1800s, early 1900s was folk music. And then right around the 1920s or so, things start to happen in this country for country music as well as all the other musics. Two things happen, and they both are technologically come from technology, I should say. One is the radio, and the other one is recordings. So in the 1920s, this explosion that's about to happen totally explodes, and it explodes because of the radio and technology. So now all of a sudden, you have the ability to hear music. You could live in Maine, and you could hear music being made in Nashville. Or you could live in Los Angeles and hear jazz being made in New York City. And also, you could bring it home. Now it becomes portable. You know what portability is because you have iPods and iPads and you don't think anything of it. But back then, to take a recording home and be able to play it on your gramophone again and again and bring Bessie Smith or Jimmy Rogers or the Carter family back into your living room, into your home, was an amazing technological feat. And that explodes all across America. And those two things are the single two reasons why we have a great American music in the 20th century. Now, think about country music, because there are two things that happened in the 1920s in addition to that I have to tell you about, and it opens the doors for everything else that will happen in country music for the rest of the century. Number one, there's something called a Grand Ole Opry. They used to have barn dances back then. Barn dances were places where people would come on Saturday nights in a big barn and have dances. And they were lots of fun, and people looked forward to them every Saturday night after working hard in the fields. You'd go to these barns, and you would play music and have a great time. Someone gets the idea, why don't we put them on this new thing called radio, and let's beam it out all over America. And that's exactly what they do. So the Grand Ole Opry, coming out of Nashville on a station called WSM, now you can hear Grand Ole Opry, which played country music. At the time, it wasn't called country music. They often called it hillbilly music, because much of the music that they were playing was coming from the hills and mountains of Appalachia. Many of these people were from English and Irish and Scottish descent. So a bulk of that root music, it's starting to be transformed into country music, comes from that area. A second thing happens in the 1920s that's totally historic in country music, and that is something called the Bristol Sessions. Bristol is a small town on the Virginia and Tennessee border. And in 1927, a very famous talent scout named Ralph Peer brings together what he thinks is some of the best talent in the area. And two artists, a family and an artist, both come hoping to get an audition and make some records, these new recordings. One of them is named Jimmy Rogers, and he's from Meridian, Mississippi. And the second is called the Carter family. They're often called the first family of country music. They make records and change everything. They become the first superstars in this new thing called country music. As a matter of fact, Jimmie Rodgers is called the father of country music. Carter family, the first family of country music. When you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, you'll see the very first person inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Jimmie Rodgers. The interesting thing about Jimmie Rodgers, though, and a lot of people say, oh, white people listened to country music back then, and black people listened to blues or R&B. Not so, because we know that Jimmie Rodgers, who was also known as the singing brakeman because he worked on the railroad, he listened to sharecroppers, black sharecroppers in the fields, and listened to what they were singing called the blues. And he mixed into his country music blues. So what we have is the start of something that had always been true in America, although we're always apt to forget it, and that is musicians and music know no boundaries. Everyone borrows from everyone else, as I'm sure these gentlemen will tell you in just a minute, and everybody sees greatness in good music. So what you have is blues influencing country, and then you hear, I've done a lot of oral histories with old black bluesmen, 70, 80, 90 years old, and I'd ask them, what was one of your most important influences? You know what they say? Oh, Grand Ole Opry. I'd say, well, that's country music. They say, yeah, we listen to country music just like everyone else. So country music forgets about segregation in this country. It brings together the races. Even though it couldn't happen officially in the segregated South, it could happen in music, and it did. The rest of the story of country music is something that just explodes, as I say, throughout America. In the 1930s, even though the Depression is happening, in the music business, this new music business almost goes away because no one can afford to buy music. You can't even afford to buy bread, but it struggles to stay. And all of a sudden, World War II comes along, and after World War II, everything is different because this technology has taken hold. Nashville has become the capital of country music, and a lot of these new record companies start putting out country records, and everyone goes to Nashville. It becomes the most important place. Many artists, from Hank Williams, you may have heard the name Hank Williams, Lefty Frizzell, Patsy Cline, and so many others in the 1940s and 1950s elevate the status of country music. And then right on through into the 60s and 70s and 80s, the music explodes more and more. So now you have, when you think about country music today, you have country music almost as pop music. It's almost hard to tell the difference. Where does country end and rock begin? When we think of someone like Garth Brooks, you all heard of Garth Brooks, one of the great country artists from the 90s, 1980s, 1990s in country music. He said, in one of the first interviews he did, someone asked, well, who's one of your most important influences? You know what he said? Kiss. I said, wow, Kiss, country music, they're not exactly country music. But that's because great artists listen to all kinds of music. And today, country music is as popular as it's ever been, even more popular. And now, of course, we have artists like Taylor Swift, Dierks Bentley. We have artists like Kenny Chesney, Alan Jackson, Shania Twain. You've heard of certainly Faith Hill and Mr. McGraw. You have all of these people, these artists who are contributing, continue to contribute to the American music tradition, as it's called, country music. So as we go forward and we think about where country music is going in the future, I can't predict it, but I can only say it's going to continue to evolve. There will be new artists, as the First Lady said, people like yourself who are writing songs right now somewhere in their homes or living rooms or with friends, and sooner or later, talent rises to the top, they will be discovered, and they will then contribute to this ongoing tradition, this great 100-plus year tradition of country music. Now, with that said, I'm only a historian, and I can give you the story in my view, but the most important stories come from the artists themselves. So what I would like to do now is I'm going to step off to the side of the stage. I'm going to ask my guests here some questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you and allow you to ask some questions as well. And we'll kind of get the story of country music from a more personalized point of view, one that they will give you. Okay? So with that said, gentlemen, thank you first of all for being here. I appreciate it. Lyle, I'd like to start with you because you were someone who, of course, had other aspirations early on. As the First Lady said, you were thinking about becoming a journalist. You went to school, Texas A&M, I believe it was?
I did go to Texas A&M, and I went to Texas A&M. My parents worked hard. My mom and my dad both worked for the Exxon company. My dad was in marketing. My mom started out as a secretary and became a training specialist eventually in human resources. Because they made choices in their lives based on what they had to do, they gave me the opportunity to make choices in my life based more on what I wanted to do. And my guitar lesson that I would take every week, that was an hour from home, my mom would, we lived about that far north of downtown Houston, and my mom would drive out after work, it was every Thursday evening, and pick me up and drive back into Houston for my lesson. So it was more than an hour for her. It was important to them. I was interested in going to college because they had gone to night school. I attended both of their graduations as a young boy. And so it was important to me because I knew it was important to them to go to college. I secretly only wanted to play music. I only wanted to play and sing and make up songs. And I was lucky enough, once I got out of college, to be able to keep playing music and didn't really ever seek a career in journalism, which was my field of study.
Kris, I think I'm safe in saying that one of the great things about country music is its ability to tell a great story. That so many of the great songs, yours, everyone else's, are really, if you will, mini song stories. They're almost small novels put to music. Can you talk about the art of songwriting and how you go about writing a song, and if that holds true for you?
Well, I was thinking while Lyle was talking about it, my parents' reaction to my idea of being a songwriter. And my mother disowned me and said, nobody over the age of 14 listens to that, and if they did, it wouldn't be anybody we want to know. She said a few bad things about Johnny Cash and Hank Williams. And the one thing that I learned by following through and being a songwriter, which took me years as a janitor in the recording studios and other things, was that the best thing I ever did was to follow my heart, which is where the writing was. And if you admire other people's writing and singing, you can learn from them. And I would recommend that you do follow your heart, because it's been nothing but the best for me. I started to say I'm 85, but I'm really only 75. Ever since I went to do what I had to do, it's been a great life. I would recommend following your heart. You don't need to be a songwriter. But songwriters have a wonderful life. You can express your feelings, and you can move the emotions of other people. I would recommend it.
Darius, your way to country music is an indirect way. You may remember Darius from Hootie and the Blowfish, okay, which was a big rock band some years ago, and then you made kind of a little transition, but country music had always been a part of your background. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I grew up in South Carolina, and I was lucky, like Lyle. I had a mom who wanted me to do anything. I had 5 brothers and sisters who didn't want me to do anything, and they would every day they would find a way to give me, for a better word, give me crap about the music I was listening to all the time. But for me, I wanted to be a songwriter. I wanted to sing songs. I wanted to go out in the world and have fun. You know, it's like Kris said. I was told so many times, being from South Carolina, I had no chance of ever making it music. I was told that a million times. I was told that by everybody I know, that it was never going to happen. You know, I just didn't believe that. I believed that, you know, I was pretty good at what I did, and we could go and we make it. And the thing about it for me is, like Kris said, follow your heart. I can't imagine doing anything else. I mean, I've had tons of jobs, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
But there's certainly a sense of persistence that you have to have. there's so few artists that simply, they write a song and bang, they're superstars. It takes a lot, and all three of you went through those hard roads to get to the point where you are. What is it about a songwriter who has a vision, like all three of you had? How do you get from the point of saying, I want to do this, to the point of saying, I am doing this? Lyle, you want to take a stab at that?
I was fortunate enough to receive encouragement at every step along the way. I started out playing just anywhere I could. I started out playing in places where people were in restaurants, where people were in the bar part, where people were waiting for their table.
Yeah.
These weren't places where people wanted to hear my songs. They wanted to hear songs that they had heard on the radio. So I learned songs like that. But I received enough encouragement at that level to be able to take the next step and to start playing in nightclubs and getting to open for singer-songwriters that I admired, and start to play my own songs. But it was in terms of feeling like you're doing it, I think that's still a day-to-day process. And I think when you love doing something, you never stop trying to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't feel like, I've sold X amount of records, and
Yep.
I just still don't feel like I'm a
You're there.
songwriter. I don't feel like I'm there, I'm making or anything. I still feel like there's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. Kris, tell me about the creative process. Every songwriter, of course, has a different way of writing songs. Some get an idea, they write it down. They wake up in the middle of the night, they might write it down. Others feel like it's a 9-to-5 job. They wake up and they sit at the piano or guitar and they work for 3 hours, take a break for lunch. How do you do it?
I have to say it's not as disciplined as it could be. I know there are people like Tom T. Hall who write so many songs a day, and I can't. I have to be inspired by it, which is a little scary, but so far it hasn't bothered me, and I'm 75.
You've wrote a couple, yeah.
No, it's but the thing is, it's the love of doing it that keeps you going.
Darius, being an African American and being in country music, there aren't a whole lot that have, Charlie Pride, you think of a couple of others, and you've been breaking ground, #1 hits. What is the secret there? Is it just about being colorblind?
I think country music's at a point to where, all those stigmas and stuff are behind them. For me, it was all about the music. It was never, my color, this color of my skin was never a problem in what I was doing. People were just, the music's good, they were going to play it. If it wasn't, they weren't. And that was really cool for me. And you got to think, as a kid, for me, listening to Al Green songs, and one day I'm 12 and I decide that I want to be a songwriter. So I start reading songwriters, and I'm looking at an Al Green song, and my favorite Al Green song, Kris wrote.
Yeah.
And you freak out because I know this country songwriter wrote this song that's just great R&B song, but that's a great song. A great song can be played at any genre and be good.
That's right, right.
And the soul doesn't really depend on your color or your background. Ray Charles is one of the best country singers there ever was, and so was George Jones. And George is just an old Southern boy, and Hank Williams, and it's really if it moves your soul and your heart, and that's what you have to do, then do it. And if it doesn't, don't.
Yeah. Last question. We're going to open it up to the kids. So much of the great country music comes out of the South. When you think of the artists, you think of basically from Virginia to Texas, and everything in between has turned out dozens and dozens of great artists. Why has this music, you think, Lyle, come out of the South? Why didn't it come out of Maine? It may be popular up there, but so many of the artists come out of the Southern experience. Why is that?
Well, I think the days of there was a point in time where we were more isolated than we used to be, and we were influenced more by what was directly around us. And as you pointed out, the traditional music coming from Appalachia, that's where that kind of music was, and primarily in the South. But we live in a very exciting new time with all the new technology. We can all be influenced by everything. The days of being able to tune in just one radio station or one television station over the air are over. So before, I think it speaks to what you said about country music becoming popular because of radio and because of stations like WSM. I think its influence can be much greater now than it ever was because of the technology.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I'm going to open it up and let's see if any of the students have some questions for you. Please raise your hand and stand up if you have a question. Tell us who you are and what school you're from, and I'll acknowledge you and we'll ask a question. Would you like to start, ma'am? Yeah.
My name is Hope Wilson. I'm from Woodrow Wilson Senior High School, and I was wondering what specifically influenced you guys to become. I was wondering what specifically influenced you guys to become country artists instead of jazz or hip hop or something. What specifically influenced you guys?
Good question.
For me, it was listening to music. I mean, there was a moment when I was a kid, I listened to everything, and then I got into high school and I discovered Lyle, and I discovered Foster and Lloyd, and Newgrass Revival, and Dwight Yoakam, and for me, it was those bands. I wanted to sound like they did. That's why I did it. It's true.
I didn't get any encouragement from it. The first job I got actually singing was when I was a janitor at Columbia, and a guy had a job at a nightclub in town that he wanted to go record that night instead, so he asked me to fill in, and after I finished one song, the owner of the club came up to me and said, "How long you been doing that?" I said, "Oh, about 15 minutes maybe." He says, "No, I mean in your life." And he fired me on the spot. So you have to be determined. But when I sing later, you'll understand why he wasn't crazy about me.
I've always been drawn to country music because of the narrative quality in country songs, because the songs tell a story traditionally, and great songs that Kris has written, like Me and Bobby McGee, you imagine yourself in that truck hitching a ride, and great narrative, great stories inspire you to your own stories, to imagine your own stories, and I think that's what's so powerful about country music.
In the back, yes, sir.
My name's Gabe Cano. I go to Woodrow Wilson High School in 10th grade. And, well, I know that different music genres influence each other, but I'm a jazz musician. I play the saxophone, so I was wondering, especially interested if country music is influenced by jazz elements, and if you guys in particular are influenced by jazz music.
Well, I'll tell you right now, you go by Lyle Lovett and his large band, and you'll see how much jazz is influenced by country music. I mean, he's got probably 3 or 4 records that are just a mash of probably more than that. All your records are. But he writes these great songs that are played in the country, but to me, some of them are jazz songs, and he has a big band that he plays with them that, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So I think all genres cross. I mean, I know when I'm writing a song, I take from everything that I know, and I'm not writing country songs. I'm just writing songs.
And I would suggest that you check out an artist by the name of Bob Wills, because Bob Wills, who came out of Oklahoma in the 1930s, he was influenced tremendously by jazz, the swing bands, just like the stuff that you probably listen to. And you'll hear that connection between jazz and country music, and they call it country and western swing, and you'll see what that's all about. Yeah. Someone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Devin Rivera, and I'm also from Woodrow Wilson High School, and I'm also an artist. And as an artist, have you ever been like artist block, meaning you've been stuck at a song, and if you have, how did you solve that problem?
Writer's block. Yeah.
I had it, and what I was writing a song and I couldn't finish it, and what I did was I just stopped writing it. I went on to the next song.
Easy enough. Kris?
I'm not sure that I have the answer for that question there. Wait, you were asking what happens when you have a block?
Writer's block.
Writer's block?
Yeah.
I do like Darius. I quit until I can. Yeah, and now that's bad advice. Really, right? No, you should keep working at it till it comes easy, and if you do persist working at it, you'll succeed. Don't give up, because writing songs is something you can do all your life, as you can look at me and see.
Yes, sir, right here. Hold, Mike.
My name is Carlos. I go to Woodrow Wilson High School. So I'm a hip hop artist, and I do use hip hop and my piano and things like that. Also play piano. So I was wondering if you can collab any two genres of music together, what would you collab using your country genre? What other genre would you collab with?
What genre would you collaborate with? What do you think?
Well, there's a big movement right now with country hip hop that's really surprised me, with Colt Ford, and actually the last #1 song was a rap song on country radio. But for me, I don't know. I'd probably put together. I like it when, like, you know, I like to play like Springsteen or something like that. You know, get some one of the big rock guys and see what they could do in country. But, you know, if I could collaborate right now, I'd like to just do a record with these two guys, and we'll call it a day.
Lyle?
Well, you know, over the years, there have been lots of hit country songs that started life as hit pop songs. Gosh, there are so many examples. But I think people who write, as Kris and Darius were saying, people who write songs oftentimes without regard to the genre. You just try to write a good song, and if a blues influence can help tell the story in a song, then you would incorporate that. And if jazz chords do, well, then you incorporate that. You know, people who write music, and people who love music love all kinds of music. And there's really no reason to limit your creativity because you might be labeled one thing or another.
Jazz and hip hop, to me, are more. They're at an intellectual level that's higher than I am, and I could never really get involved in it because I couldn't do the mechanics of it.
Someone from Anacostia who hasn't. Okay, you, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Charles, and I'm from Anacostia in 9th grade. Y'all said y'all are very influenced by other music genres. I was wondering, like, why, like, what would y'all, like, if y'all would consider, as a young child, being in another music genre?
Was there another music genre that you were interested in as a kid?
I was lucky. I was into everything. I had a mom who let me listen to whatever I want, and I listened to everything from the Rocky Horror Picture Show to you know, deep hip hop to country. And so for me, I just wanted to sing. When I met my guys in college, you know, if I had met 3 guys that wanted to play country music, we'd have been a country band. I just happened to meet 3 guys that wanted to play rock and roll. So I mean, I was with everything. I made an R&B record back in 2000. Yeah, I love everything.
Lyle?
You know, I had made up a pile of songs, and I went to Nashville really because I knew that was a place where publishers, where recording artists were interested in songs. So I thought, well, this is a logical place to go because I was trying to get people interested in recording my songs. So I went to Nashville, and because I went to Nashville, they gave me a little more credit for being country than I gave myself, in fact. I didn't think of some of my songs as being country songs, but as I got to record them, then they became thought of as country songs.
I grew up down in Brownsville, Texas, which is right at the bottom of Texas, very close to Mexico. So I grew up singing Mexican songs, and loving Mexican songs. And it wasn't a big jump from there to the, I guess what they call country or soul songs, because it was all heart and emotion, but it's pretty simple musically.
You know, I think before we get one last question, one of the things I'm sure I'm summarizing for you, and certainly for the education programs we do at the Grammy Museum, if you are a young artist, and some of you are apparently, the worst thing you can do is limit yourself. You have to be sponges. You have to go out there and listen to all kinds of music, anything. Classical to opera to country to soul, it doesn't matter. Sponge it up, take it all in, because that's how you'll find your identity, and that's how you'll find your original sound. And without original sound, then you're just interpreting someone. You, the Grammy winners, those people who stand up there next February and get that Grammy Award, they did that. They tell us in the interviews and the programs that we do with them in Los Angeles. They say, I listen to everything, just like what you're saying. I listen to everything. You need to do the same thing. Do not, you may love country, you may love hip hop, listen to everything, expose yourself to everything. We're going to take one last question and then we're going to play some music. Yes, ma'am, right here. That's right.
So I'm also a singer and a songwriter, and so is there like a certain transition between just performing at like local restaurants and stuff and then going to like big stages? And did you ever think that you wouldn't be able to make it from there to like being in front of a bunch of people like you are now?
Darius?
I started a band when I was 19 years old, and we were a band for 9 years before anybody even thought about giving us a record deal.
Wow.
I mean, it was, we played 300 days a year for about 3 years in a row, and that's how you make it. I mean, I don't want to come down on American Idol. I think it's a great show and it's a great way, but it seems like everybody, especially in your generation, when I talk to people, they expect to have it tomorrow. And it's just not going to happen that way. The music business, I mean, it takes a lot of work. Like I said, it took 9 years for us to even get a record deal. And then once we got a record deal, after that, it was pretty quick. But it took a long time. If you want to make it, you got to be willing to sacrifice and wait. Because we played some really nasty, dirty clubs that we should have never been in, but we were there. We did.
Lyle, I think what part of her question also is, when you're playing in those restaurants, are you playing with the same intensity, and are you playing with the same commitment to an audience that you would, say, in an arena or at a big festival somewhere where there's thousands of people?
You know, when you love getting to do what you're doing, and there's not, and you all know this already, I think, but there's not a greater blessing in life than to get to be able to do things that you like to do. And when you love doing what you're doing, I think you always try your best, and it doesn't matter if there are 2 tables of people waiting, really thinking about what they're going to have for dinner as they listen to you, or if you're playing to 10,000 people in an arena or a stadium, you try your best every time, and I think that never changes. It's not so much about the audience as it is about your own self-respect, what you think of what you're doing. And if you're happy with what you're doing, then you'll always try your best.
Good advice. Good advice. With that, why don't you just finish up there, Kris, and then we'll take some music.
Is this thing working?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say that you're going to have so much influence against what you want to do, because everybody wants to be a hit singer or to have hit songs. You got to believe in yourself, and like he was saying, how long it takes. I was 33 years old before I made a dime at music, and I've been working at it full time since I got out of the Army. So it's hard, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to love it.
With that said, I think what we'll do, instead of talking about music, how about we listen to some music, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Darius, and we're just going to go right down. If you just play us a song that kind of best represents your repertoire, that would be great. And we'll get some mic stands here. How about, give it up.
You standing or sitting?
You can sit or stand.
How about coming up there? You coming to me? Okay.
This song, this is the first country song I ever wrote. And I wrote it a long time ago, and Songs come from everywhere. I wrote the song one night when I was having a pretty good time, and I was listening to Bonnie Raitt records, and I wanted to write a song for Bonnie, and this is what I wrote. She sits alone by a lamppost, trying to find a thought that's escaped her mind. She says, "That's the one I love the most." Oh, Michael Stipe's not far behind. She never lets me in, only tells me where she's been when she's had too much to drink. I say that I don't care, I just run my hands through her dark hair, and I pray to God he'll me fly away. He said, let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing. If it eases all her pain, you gotta let her go. Walk right out on me, and if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Let her be, yeah. This morning I woke up alone, found a note standing by the phone. It said, maybe I'll be back someday. Like a fool, I wanted to look for you. You walked in, I didn't know just what I should do. So I sat back down and had a beer and felt sorry for myself, saying, let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing, yeah. If it eases all her pain, you gotta let her go. Walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Let her be. Last night I tried to leave. She cried so much I could not believe she was the same girl I fell in love with long ago. Yeah. She went to the back to get high. I sat down on my couch and I started to cry for my mama. I said, please, mama, won't you come in? Take me out of here. She said, boy, let her cry. Her tears fall down like rain. Let her sing. Yeah, it eases all her pain. You gotta let her go. Walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Let her be. Thank y'all. I felt pretty good. I saw you singing it. I felt pretty good. She knew my song. I have to tell you why you set this up, that these two guys are two of the biggest influences on my music. I say in interviews all the time that I wouldn't be a country singer if it wasn't for Lyle Lovett, and that's really true. And I want to say thank you guys for just making great music.
This is it's kind of hard to pick, isn't it? Yeah. To play one song. One of the songwriters that I grew up listening to, every time I would hear one of his songs, I'd think to myself, gosh, that's what I want to do. It's a songwriter from Texas who Kris and Darius both know, named Guy Clark. And Guy is from out in West Texas originally, and spent a lot of his growing up time down on the Texas Gulf Coast in Rockport, Texas. And he's a very talented man all the way around, is really talented painter and artist, and was working as the art director, graphics artist for the local ABC affiliate in Houston, KTRK, Channel 13, and hanging out with ne'er-do-well songwriters like Mickey Newberry and Townes Van Zandt and Jerry Jeff Walker in Houston. And Guy tells me that it was Mickey Newberry who encouraged him to write his first song. And this is it. And it's that this is anybody's first anything is, I think, incredible. But it's a song that Guy never has recorded, and he was nice enough to let me record it a few years back. It's a song about inviting somebody into your life. It tells a story, but not the kind of story that allows for your own imagination as well. It's a song that shows you how when you do invite somebody into your life, you expose yourself a little bit. You say, well, this is who I am, this is how I am, you have to if you want to be part of this, you have to accept me. That picture hanging on the wall was painted by a friend. He gave it to me all down and out when he owed me 10. It doesn't look like much, I guess, but it's all that's left of him. And it sure is nice from right over here when the light's a little dim. Well, step inside this house, girl, I'll sing for you a song. I'll tell you about just where I've been, it wouldn't take too long. I'll show you all the things that I own, my treasures you might say. Well, it couldn't be more than $10 worth, but they brighten up my day. And this book of poems was given me by a girl I used to know. I guess I read it front to back 50 times or so. It's all about the good life and staying at ease with the world. It's funny how I love that book and I never loved that girl. Well, step inside this house, girl, I'll sing for you a song. I'll tell you about just where I've been, it wouldn't take too long. I'll show you all the things that I own, my treasures you might say, that couldn't be more than $10 worth, but they brighten up my day. Well, now you hold this piece of glass up to the light that's shining through the door. Well, it's a prism glass, I found it on the road. Now can't you see that tiny rainbow? Well, it's not really a prism, I guess it just kind of broke a funny way. I was on my way through Houston and I was headed for L.A. Step inside this house, girl, I'll sing for you a song. I'll tell you about just where I've been, it wouldn't take too long. I'll show you all the things that I own, my treasures you might say, that couldn't be more than $10 worth, but they brighten up my day. Now this guitar was given me by old man Thomas Gray. It's not too much to look at,
but I play it every day. It's been across this country now 4 or 5 times, I guess. Between me and old man Tom, it never got much rest. Well, step inside this house, Earl, I'll sing for you a song. I'll tell you about just where I've been. It wouldn't take too long. I'll show you all the things that I own, my treasures, you might say, that couldn't be more than $10 worth, but they brighten up my day. Now that's just about all that I own and all I care to, I guess. Except this pair of boots, maybe, and that funny yellow vest, and that leather jacket, and that leather bag, and that hat hanging on the wall. Just so it's not too much to carry, babe, could I see you again next fall? Well, step inside this house, Earl, I'll sing for you a song. I'll tell you about just where I've been. It wouldn't take too long. I'll show you all the things that I own, my treasures, you might say, that couldn't be more than $10 worth, but they brighten up my day.
Jack Clark. Thank you.
I don't know if that's on or not. Can you tell? Can you hear me? There you go. Yeah. This is a song that was inspired by a scene in a movie that was about the poor people from Oklahoma that were out in California. Out there, they were called Okies, and Okie was a dirty word. And anyway, this kind of... The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. 2 truck drivers drinking their coffee. And 2 Okie kids at the door. How much are them candies, they asked her. How much have you got, she replied. We've only a penny between us. Them's 2 for a penny, she lied. And the daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. One truck driver called to the waitress after the kids went outside. Them candies ain't 2 for a penny. So what's it to you, she replied. In silence they finished their coffee, got up and nodded goodbye. She called, hey, you left too much money. So what's it to you, they replied. And the daylight was heavy with thunder, the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. Thank you.
Lyle Lovett, Kris Kristofferson. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.